manual with the new 7th edition. So I thought I would start off with a little introduction about why we care, what style and what style guide we use, and just a little background on the APA style manual. The publication manual of the American Psychological Association has its origins in a 7-page article. Can you imagine that? It's only 7 pages, printed in 1929 by a group of psychologists, anthropologists, and business leaders who wanted to establish a set of simple procedures that would make it with standardized scientific writing to make it easier to read and comprehend. The APA publication manual encourages writers to use language that is clearly and precisely written and easy to comprehend. Writers using the APA style should use inclusive and bias-free language, and the style guide makes it clear how to do that. The 7th edition includes a section on, hold on, I'm figuring out how to use the computer up here. There we go. Includes a section on how to write in a scholarly manner, including how to use and present research that is up-to-date and evidence-based for both student papers and for papers for publication. So the basics of APA style, APA encourages writers to use a format that is uniform and consistent. This allows readers to focus on the ideas presented without being distracted by an unfamiliar format. Uniformity and consistency in writing and format allows readers to scan an article or a paper quickly to locate key points of the author's results and their sources. We've all flipped to the back of an article to find the conclusion section to see what they actually said. APA style also encourages writers to fully disclose essential information in the content in the actual writing so readers can comprehend it without having to decipher graphs and statistics. Those things may still be included, but especially in papers meant for publication, but the reader shouldn't have to have a degree in statistics to understand the results of the research being presented. And writers experienced in APA style learn to organize their papers in a way that allow the ideas to flow logically from one section to another, with proper credit being given for sources used. Another important facet of APA style writing is that it utilizes language that affirms the worth and dignity of people mentioned in the writing. This includes what is sometimes called people first language. This is especially emphasized in the 7th edition. Finally, authors should be ethical in how they present their research, including protocols and other details that will allow researchers to try and replicate their findings. This is important because we want to use theories that are evidence-based and proven to be effective. There are some other ways to use the publication manual as well. The style guide gives descriptions for different types of articles and papers that students will use as research sources or submit as student papers. If you don't know the difference between a quantitative and a qualitative research article, if you need to write a literature review but don't know what it is, the APA manual will tell you. The guide also outlines ethical and legal standards for publishing research, including how to issue a retraction if you need to do so. There's information about protecting the rights and welfare of research participants. If you're interested in publishing a paper, the style guide dedicates an entire chapter to journal article reporting standards, which includes information researchers need to know, should include when submitting articles, and information on how to make their research clearer, more accurate, and more readable. It also includes an entire chapter on the publication process itself, including how to avoid predatory journals and those with poor reputations, the editorial process, and how to prepare a manuscript for publication. This is what the new manual looks like. And there are quite a few changes from the 6th to the 7th edition. There are updated guidelines on how writers can use more inclusive and bias-free language. There are changes on how to create references and some in-text citations with over 100 examples given for pretty much any sort of reference you might need to create. And there are now different requirements for professional papers and student papers with examples given for each. So the APA Style Guide has a history of encouraging bias-free work. The lack of names in references and citations is an example of this. With only initials to go by when looking at citations, a reader can't tell if the cited author is male or female. And the new standards are pushing for even more inclusion and bias-free language. This includes the use of they, their is a gender-neutral pronoun, the use of people-first language, and avoiding using nouns to label people or groups of people, and using specific and relevant age ranges instead of a broad category. So when talking about gender, the APA manual now endorses the use of they as a gender-neutral pronoun. In the 6th edition, we would have had to say his or hers. In the 7th edition, we can say a student's success depends on their level of dedication. And also using they as a gender-neutral term for people who identify as gender-neutral. In addition, the APA Style Guide says that writers should explicitly designate the gender identity of participants in samples instead of assuming that participants are cisgender unless otherwise stated. As you can see, this example says participants in this study included cisgender and transgender, lesbian, gay, and bisexual students. So do not assume that your participants are cisgender. There is also a section about using people first versus identity first language. When writing about persons with disabilities, it is important to use the language that the referred to group prefers. Some people prefer that they be referred to in people first language, such as this example. But for some groups, identity first language is a form of cultural pride. The deaf community, for example, generally prefers to be referred to as the deaf instead of people who are deaf. This is part of their cultural identity. The 7th edition of the APA manual also encourages writers to be specific when using categories instead of using broad age ranges. So, for example, instead of saying young adults, we might say people between the ages of 18 and 30. Saying young adults is not necessarily wrong, but it's not very specific. And then the 7th edition also gives specific terms to refer to people in certain age ranges, and dedicates quite a few paragraphs to talking about ways to refer to older adults that are inclusive instead of language that is othering to older adults. Changes to how to create references. So with so many publishers now having locations in other countries and online publishers, and we've all turned to the title page of a book and there's been 6 different cities listed and who knows which one we're supposed to use, well, now you don't have to decide because you no longer have to use it. This is the only one that hurts just a little. So when we have 20 or more authors, used to be you could list the first 6 and then skip to the last one. Now you have to list up to 19 and then use the ellipses and list the last one. So you're going to list 20 authors if you run across one of those journal articles that has a lot of authors. However, it is more inclusive. It is giving researchers who worked on the project more name recognition. So I get why they do it. Retrieval information has changed just a little. You no longer have to include the words retrieved from unless you have to include a retrieval date, and some sources do ask for a date. And with websites, we're going to now include the name of the website where the retrieval information used to be. So in this example, this is from the BBC, and it used to say retrieved from and include a link, and now it says BBC News. Also, retrieval information, I don't think I said that, retrieval information is formatted as a hyperlink, and especially for electronic submissions, those hyperlinks should be active. DOIs are now also formatted as URLs. Used to be we just said DOI, we had a string of numbers. Now you're going to format that as an actual link, and this link should be active. If you're citing an ebook, you used to have to include the platform that it was published on. We no longer include the platform. We do now include the publisher. So whereas you used to would have said Kindle version, we now don't care what device you read it on, but we want to know who published it. Online sources and social media, there's so many changes here, and it's so fun because I'm such a nerd. I know y'all are going to think it's fun too. There are so many examples for how to cite anything from a TED Talk to a YouTube video to a Facebook post, including, and they did sort of including the emojis. And there is, and that link messed up for some reason. And so in this one, so you see the emojis, and then it also says image attached. You're going to include that because this Facebook post had an image attached to it. And there is an official website called unicode.org where you can go to get all of these emoji descriptions. These two happen to be described as backhand index pointing down and raising hands. That would not have been how I would have described those, but sure. So in-text citations have changed just a little. Now, instead of having to list out your authors the first time and then being able to change to using the et al., you can change to using et al. From the very first mention. Unless you have an ambiguous example and then you have to list out as many authors as you need until it's clear. So we have formatting and mechanics of style. The APA manual now says one space after a period. I've been doing this for years, didn't know it was wrong. We also now are using quotation marks instead of italics for linguistic examples. So previously we would have said they in italics in this example, and now we're going to put it in quotation marks. We have font options, assuming your professor is okay with font options. All of these are considered options now because they're easy to read. Most of them include special symbols such as Greek letters and math symbols. So if you're writing a paper and presenting research, you can include those weird little symbols. Last big change to the 7th edition is that writers no longer need to include the words running head on a running head. Just include that shortened title. And now, with professor approval, students do not have to include a running head on their paper at all. So that's it. If you have questions, need more help, come see me in the Writing Center. I work there as a tutor, and I think I forgot to introduce myself, didn't I? I did. So my part-time job is on campus in the on-campus Writing Center, which is why I'm a grammar nerd. Anybody have any questions? I know that was so exciting. Yes, Dr.
So
Porter.
18 names of the authors, that was just for in the reference section.
Yes.
But then the actual paper itself,
Yes.
in text, it's just
Yeah, you're gonna list the first author and then et al. In your in-text citation.
Okay.
Listing out all of those names is in your reference page. Yes.
Do you know, this is going to sound lazy maybe, so I often have used Purdue OWL or another citation generator, and I was using one at the beginning of this class this semester, and I thought that it said 7th edition, and I believe that it did, but now it only says 6th, and so my citations have been incorrect. So what, do you know how often
Well, I know the Purdue OWL website itself they have updated their APA page.
Yes.
But they do not, so the citation generators that show up on that website are ads. And as a writing tutor, I really don't recommend using them because they almost never get them right. Unless it's a really simple citation, they almost never get them
That's
right.
good to know. Thank you.
I know it seems like there's a lot of different ways of creating citations you're never going to remember, but after a couple of papers, you'll be used to the basic formats that you use, which can be journal articles and books, and you won't even have to go look anymore.
Well, thank you for that encouragement.
Any more questions? Yeah.
I was just trying to look it up, and I may be wrong, but I thought, well, the in-text citation, where you have the author's last name and et al.
Mm-hmm.
Up here and up there, it showed a comma after the author's name, but I believe in the book, the comma's taken away, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think it's the right thing up here.
You said it's really working on a comma. You said that comma.
Yeah, the APA still uses a comma.
Not after the word.
Okay, right, but up there, it was after the author.
Hey, I'm only human. I could have had a typo.
Yeah, yeah, that, yeah. Right. Okay, yeah, that's.
So which slide was it on?
The intake, the author et al.
Mm-hmm.
And a comma after the author in the 7th edition, the comma was taken away, according to the book.
I might have also just missed something when going through the book.
I may be wrong. That's the way I've been doing it, so I was just wanting to make sure. Yeah, right there.
This one?
Baker et al.
Mm-hmm.
According to the book, that comma after Baker should be there.
Huh.
Yeah, it's just Baker et al. Comma, period, comma, 2019.
Okay. I'm going to say do it how the book does it. I've always done it that way. So I don't know if that's a change and I just missed that change.
I think it did, because
Okay.
I had two.
Yeah.
And I didn't put the comma after it, and then this year I saw it's different, so I took the comma out. And I was always going to make sure I got it right.
Okay. Thank you for pointing it out. I'm going to go back through the book and go, okay, did I miss this?
I could be wrong, but I think that's what I'm looking at.
Okay. I'll double check. Any more questions?
Did they offer a rationale for the one space versus two?
No. I did not. I mean, other than most of the other style guides have moved away from that. A lot of it is like the AP style, which is the journalism style, moved away from it quite a few years ago. So I've been doing one space for years. So yeah, I didn't even realize APA was still saying to use 2 spaces. Clearly, I did not read the 6th edition very clearly when I bought it.
Other questions?
So when we do our journal entries, or whichever one we have to do for you, where we have to put our references, do we have to list all those? Do you want us to list all if there's 18 more?
That's the way it's supposed to be done, yeah.
I may just need to look in the book and I can easily find this information. But is there a way to cite like course notes? Like how?
Yes.
I think there is. I just don't know.
Yes, there are ways that that's part of the things that when they talk about having examples for how to cite lots of different things, I'm fairly certain that there are ways to cite course notes. Worst case scenario, it's almost like citing like PowerPoints or conference proceedings. It would kind of be the same format.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, Caitlin?
Thank you. Amanda, before you leave, can you talk a little bit about the Writing Center and the services of while maybe they're making that transition?
Yeah, so here, let me take that. So yeah, so I work in the Writing Center. It is in the library directly above Starbucks on the 3rd floor. And we work with writers at all stages of the writing process. If you know you have a paper and have no idea where to get started, you can come in and we will brainstorm with you. If you are working on your PhD dissertation and just need help with your citations, we'll work with that too. We sometimes work with professors, we work with freshmen, we work with undergrad, whatever you need help with. If it is writing, if it is a PowerPoint, if it is a resume for a job that's not related to school, we will help you with that too. So anything, if it has words on it, we can help you with it.
Does that include maybe taking a draft of a paper and helping to review it?
Yes.
And not only for content, but for APA style?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we do things like that all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you needed to go over a paper and you need to talk about content and your APA citations, I recommend you sign up for a 45-minute session instead of a 25-minute, just because 25 minutes goes really fast.
And do they need to make an appointment?
I highly recommend that you make appointments, especially the later in the semester it gets. The faster we fill up, the week of midterms and the week of finals, you will not be able to get walk-in appointments, and you might not even be able to get one the same day. So if you know you have a paper coming up, go ahead and make an appointment. You can call us, you can go to the Writing Center website yourself, and there's a link that you can click, and you'll have to set up an account for yourself, and then you can schedule your own appointments once you've done that. Or you can, if you're in the library, if you're on campus, you can just come to the Writing Center and say, hey, I need an appointment, what you got? And we'll set one up for you too. Hope to see you all there.
I'll see you there.
One more?
I might have counted way off. I got it now. Thank you. All right, I'll just wait till you're done. Does everyone have a handout? Yes. Can you hear me? Hello? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Caitlin Robles. And I know quite a few of y'all, but I don't know everyone, so hello. I'm currently in practicum, so I'm about halfway done. But I'm really interested in conference proposals, and so that's why Dr. Lee asked me to do this presentation. So hopefully you learn a little bit about it, even if you don't want to do it. Maybe it'll make you interested in doing conference presentations. So first, why should I present at a conference? First of all, I think this is the answer that most people give is put on your resume. I mean, ultimately we're all trying to get jobs, and so you want to put as much on your resume as possible. ultimately, there's more to it than that. But specifically for school counselors too, it's helpful. We're going to be doing presentations almost daily in some form or capacity in a classroom, with school staff. And so showing your future employer that you're really good at doing presentations and you're knowledgeable about certain topics is helpful. Specifically for school counselors, but clinical mental health, it's helpful as well. Which brings to increased job opportunities. So we all want jobs, again. And you get to meet other professionals and students. Recently I went to a conference and I met this girl and like we clicked off, and now we're friends on Facebook and like we talk about counseling. And so that's something you can definitely do and it's fun. And it also has travel opportunities. So, you know, a lot of the conferences you're going to be presenting at are probably going to be in Tennessee. But I know that Dr. Wilson is trying to get people to go to even ASCA's conference, ACA, and those are in really cool places like San Diego and I think Orlando, Florida 1 year. So I know I want to go to Disney World. We all want to someday. And then it's pretty fun. I like it. I'm kind of like a weird presentation dork and I like the process of it. But it's cool to think of like an idea and then put it out there into the world and have feedback. You guys might disagree. So first, there's kind of two ways to start with this. A lot of people either start with an idea. They come up with something that's relevant to what they like. They think of a topic from their class or something like that, and they're like, okay, I want to present this. Other people just know they want to present. That was me. I didn't necessarily come into this being like, oh, I have all these great ideas. I just knew that I wanted to get out there and I wanted to start conversations. That's a little bit longer of a process because you have to brainstorm ideas. Starting with the idea, obviously, it's a little easier. But the second step of that is just looking at relevant conferences. So for all of us, it's going to be something related to counseling. But it breaks up versus school or mental health. So you just look at the options. So I've done a little bit of the work for you. So as Dr. Lee mentioned, TLPCA is coming up. I have the dates for all of that, and I have the deadline, not for the student poster presentations, but for the just regular presentation. So TLPCA is coming up, TCA is a little bit longer, so you see those little squiggles next to it, that means there's not a set date. But both of these accept student poster presentations, and they're really great opportunities. And then here's some more options. So ASCA and ACA are not going to be as friendly for students. Like I don't believe they accept student poster presentations. I looked everywhere and I didn't see a single student, so I'm assuming. But Scally does for sure. And ASCA and ACA are definitely options. Like if you have a professor that's going, they could ask you to join. It really is just luck of the draw if they are going. So now that you've seen a couple of places, the couple conference ideas, we're going to go over what you're going to do before you even start. So obviously check your deadlines. I've done that already for a lot of y'all, so if you want to do it. And then also look at guidelines. So as Dr. Lee mentioned before, most places will not let you do a traditional like lecture or presentation. Usually they only accept student poster presentations. I made that mistake. I definitely sent in a proposal for something that they only accept people with master's degrees. So keep that in mind because you're going to save yourself some work. Also, look at the requirements, look at theme, and then pay attention to proposal format. So we're going to go over 4 and 5 in just a little bit. So looking at theme. I think a lot of people try to look at theme and they say, oh, I want to pick a topic based on that theme. And you definitely can. That can help you drive, what idea that you want to present on. But it's also very broad and a lot of sensitivity. So here's a couple of examples of themes or for conferences in the area. So TCA from 2019 was building bridges. For that, I actually co-presented with Dr. Wilson, and so our topic, or our title for our presentation was Tearing Down Walls for Latino Students with Disabilities. So it fits the theme, but it's not directly saying, building bridges for Latino students. So it's a little bit different, but it still fits the theme. Next year, TCA, their theme is Make Your Voices Heard. So you see, it's pretty broad themes, but it can still help you come up with a topic. Okay, so if you are one of those people that just wants to present, you don't have any ideas, your biggest resource is your intro paper. I'm going to say it again, it's super important. It seems like it's a lot of work for intro, but it will save you so much time. I mean, I've done a poster based on my intro paper. I'm planning on reusing that poster.